Hello students. So, we start with the term second module. In second module, we start with the term what is called the market forces. We have to explain both market forces, that is the demand as well as the supply. So, that the two forces are there, one is called the demand and supply. These two things combined together that determine the term what is called the markets. Because if you move to the any sort of market, what do you find? That the two things, those are the one those sell the product and those who consuming it. Those are the consuming, that is the demand side, those who sell, that is the supply side. So, you have to comparing the both the terms to reach the market, how they determine the equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity and so on, that to be inside the markets. But those explaining the terms of market price and equilibrium, we have to study the two forces are there, one is called the demand and then the supply. So, we have to first of all to explain the first and second forces of it. Let us start with the term what is called the demand. What is the meaning of the demand? Demand means any idea about the terms demand? Demand means the what you need is called the demand. Is it the need? Only need is called the demand. Let us say we take into account the need or it is called the desire. You say only the need is called the demand. Suppose you are in the hungry, now you have to move to the fast food stall, you need to consuming it because you are the hungry, therefore you have to consuming it. Let us say it is the summer season, you are in the thirsty mode, you have to enter into the ice cream stall to consuming your ice cream. Your intention, you need a ice cream in order to cooling down your body temperature, but is it called the demand? No, it is not so. So, only the desire, only the need is not called the demand. So, in order to move to the term only the desire to consuming it, you have the power to consuming it, that means the power to consume. At that particular time when you are thirsty, when you are hungry, you are trying to consuming it, that is your need, that is your desire, but that desire only not called the demand. Along with the desire, you have some power to consuming it. If you do not have the power, that is the money power. If you do not have the money power, that the ability to pay, this is the power to consume means ability to pay. If you do not have the power to pay for it, you can't get that particular product. So, in order to getting that particular product, you have to pay for it. Therefore, that is called the power to pay or ability to pay for it. And at that particular time period, not only the desiring it, not only have to be, you have the power to pay for it, but this desire and ability to pay for it is not called the demand. Along with it, it requires some more things. What is that? And that is called as will to pay, that is called the willing to pay. Willing to pay, because let us say why it is called the willing to pay. Suppose you have to enter into that particular ice cream stall to purchase a particular ice cream, and he say, the shopkeeper say, then you have to pay me 200 rupees for that particular product. Do you pay for that? A single ice cream 200 rupees, never you have to purchasing it, yes or no? So, therefore, willing to pay plays an important role. When all these three things are present, then it is called the demand. So, the demand for a product means at that particular time or that situation, you have the desiring to consuming it, you have the power to consuming it, and you have the ability or the willing to pay for that one. When these three things are there, then it is called the demand. And the demand for a particular product, it is a functions of its price, income, taste, preferences, then populations, then price of other related commodities. So, when demanding a particular product, let us say the product X, it depends upon its price, it depends upon the income, it depends upon the taste, preferences, populations and price of other related commodities. Other related commodities in the sense the price of its substitute and the price of its complement. Price of its substitute and price of its complement. Now, the law tells us, law of demand, that tells us other things being constant, when other things being constant, let us we have to assuming it, this thing to be remains constant. This thing means income, taste, preferences, populations, your let us say the price of other related commodities, all the things being constant, when price of a product be increase, that leads to quantity demand for that product fall. When price falls, quantity demand increases. So, there is a inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, right. Price and quantity demanded, that to be inversely related to each other. So, that is the law of demand, but remember, while we are explaining this law, we have to assuming other things remain the same, other things remains constant. अन्य सब जिनिस स्थिर थाए, when price of a product falls, quantity demand increases and vice versa. That is called the law of demand. Then after knowing the term law of demand, we have to explain next things, what is called the individual demand and market demand. Individual demand and market demand. Here what we cited, let us say assuming the price is to be given to you as 5, 10, 15, 20. Number of units, we take another bit, 5, 10, 15, 20 and 25. Number of units, that is the quantity demand of that particular product, right. If it is a, let us say this is called the price of ice cream, per piece is given to you. If the price of ice cream is to be 5 rupees, you consuming let us say 20 units of it. If the price of ice cream is increases to the 10, you purchase 15 units of it. If it is a increases to the further, let us say 15 rupees, you have to consuming 10 units of it. If it is further increases, consuming 5, and in the 25 you are consuming only 1. As a consumer, your intention when price of a product to be increases, you have to be consuming less amount of it. While you explaining this law with the help of a table of an individual person, that is called the individual demand schedule. That is the individual demand schedule. Is the individual demand, and while you preparing a term is the table, that is called the individual demand schedule. But what about the market? In case of a market, here let us say the individual A's demand corresponding to this price, let us say there is another individuals, the quantity demand of the B, the number of units is to be consuming, let us say he consuming in this way, let us say to be 18, here is to be let us say is to be 16, in this case it will be let us say the 10 and 8, and thereby let us say it will be consuming 2 units of it. Like this is the different perceptions of the consumer, that will be consuming differently. What do you find here? When price increases, individual B also be consuming differently. When price falls, demand increases, when price increases, demand fall. This is the individual A's point of view, this is the individual B's point of view. By target is the market demand. While we are explaining the market demand, it is the quantity demand of A plus B. You have to add both the demands simultaneously into reach the terms of your market demand, and here it will be 38. If you add both the demands, individual demand A and individual demand B, then it turns to be the 31. Here is to be 20 and 13, and it will be 3. This is the representation of your market demand. So, the individual demand and the market demand. that's called the individual demand schedule and the market demand schedule. While you add it individual market, while you are adding together, then it is called the market demand. Now, if we are explaining with the help of a curve, that is called the individual demand curve. Individual demand curve. So, if you express in the terms of your curve in the sense I mean the graph रे express करिबा ताले कौन करिबा ना on the horizontal axis I mean about quantity demand and or simply it is called the quantity, on the vertical axis we take the price, right. I mean price नबा कोठी रे ना vertical axis रे नबा quantity नबा कोठी ना horizontal axis रे. So, if you take the price individually you can plotting it and find the term this is the demand of A, right. When price falls quantity demand increases. Similarly, आमे जदि नवा B individual B रा then तारा demand curve to be let us say assuming it just assuming it this is the demand of B. So, individual A's demand is that, individual B's demand is that, and when we join together we find it is a flatter demand curve, demand of A plus B, horizontal addition of your individuals A's demand and B's demand. So, this is called the market demand curve. ताले आमे कौन जानले ना demand काहाकु कहते जहाँ desire थिबो, willing to power that is called the willing to pay थिबो and power to pay थिबो ताको कहले आमे demand कहबा. Then आमे law of demand जानले, law of demand means when price fall demand increases and when price rise demand fall and so on, that is called the law of demand, but provided that other thing being constant. Then I mean देखिए जानिबा what is individual demand curve, what is market demand curve, individual demand schedule and market demand schedule. Now after that we have to move to the next concepts, that is called as what is meant by shift in demand curve and movement in the demand curve. Shift in demand curve and movement along the demand curve. आमे कहबा गोटा को shift in demand curve केतरा shift होउची आ गोटे कहबा movement along the demand curve. Let us say quantity demand of a product, it is the functions of its price, income, taste, preferences and so on. आमे एटी को जानिचे कोन ना law of demand आमे कहिचे देखैचे ना price अपटे नबा quantity नबा अन्य जिनिस स्थिर थाई ए जिनिस स्थिर रखिचे demand curve टा like this way अछि downward sloping अछि आमे कोन करिबा गोटे let's say initial price नै जिबा P1 and quantity नै जे Q1 आमे at the point कोते अछि A अछि. Let us say at this situation when price of the product falls जेतले price टा fall करि गला अन्य जिनिस स्थिर अछि when price falls that leads the quantity demand increases. Quantity demand increases. Now when the price fall, let us say for example price falls to the P0, when price falls P0 the quantity demand increases from Q1 to Q2 जेतले पैसा कमुची P1 रो P0 को quantity demand बढ़ी जाउची Q1 रो Q2 को and आमे move करूची along the demand curve from A to B आमे A रो B को जाउची. Similarly when price of the product increases that leads to the quantity demand of the product to be false. जेतले प्राइस टा राइज करि जाउची जेतले प्राइस राइज करछे फ्रॉम P1 टू P2 आमे देखुचे आमे C पॉइंट को मूवमेंट करूचे क्वांटिटी डिमांड कोन होजे ना Q0 हो जाउचे. So again A रो आमे C को जाउचे. This is called the movement along the demand curve. But एटा मूवमेंट केतेले करिबा ना जेतले अन्य जिनिस स्थिर थिबो. Other thing being constant, when other things being constant, when price fall demand increases, this is called the expansion in demand or extension in demand. And when price rise demand fall, this is called the contraction in demand. Contraction in demand. Expansion contraction किंबा एटी movement along the demand curve. से डिमांड कर्व ऊपर मूवमेंट करछि जेतले हम तळको मूव करछे हेला एक्सपांशन जेतले ऊपर को मूव करछे कंट्राक्शन तळको केतले मूव करबा ना जेतले प्राइस टा फॉल करि जिवो हमें डाउनवर्ड आसीबा जेतले प्राइस राइज करबो हमें अपवर्ड जिवो सो जेतले डाउनवर्ड आसुची दैट्स कॉल्ड एक्सपांशन अपवर्ड गले कंट्राक्शन इन द डिमांड. नाउ मूव टू द shift in demand curve. In this case, quantity demand is a function of its price, income, taste, preferences and so on. But we have to assuming, let us say price being constant, एठी आमे कौन करिबा price टा constant रखिबा. तो आमे price टा constant रखिबा, quantity this side the price, and the demand curve is to be D corresponding to the price P1, we are at the point A and consuming Q1, right. Now, if income of the consumer increases, taste increases, preference increases, anything, any one of the product to be increase, if anything to be increases, then what do we find? Now, consumer try to consuming more, thereby the demand curve move from D1 to D to D dash. That means the consumer try to consuming more of it from Q1 to Q2 and it moved from A to B. So, the demand curve shift upway. So, केते up को shift करला? Now, when price of the product remains constant, income increases, I mean your taste increases, preference increases, anything you are going to be increased. If anything you are going to be increased, price being constant, then what happened? The consumer consuming more of it. When you consumer consuming more of it, it moved from A to B, I mean Q1 to Q2. This rise again market here, it is also being increased. This is called the expansion or the extension. This is called the increase in demand. Increase in demand. Demand increases. Now, just take the reverse part of it. If income falls, taste falls, preferences fall, all things going to be fall, then what happened? The consumer try to consuming less of it. That means the demand curve shifted downward parallelly. It will be consuming at the point C. That means now he consuming less amount of it. It is so, and that particular part is called the decrease in demand. One is called the increase in demand and second part is called the decrease in demand. তাহলে এটি আমি কোন দেখুছি না তাহলে অপ কো শিফট করুছি আমি কହୁছি ইনক্রিজ ইন ডিমান্ড তাহলে ডাউন কো শিফট করুছি তাকে আমি কହୁছি ডিক্রিজ ইন ডিমান্ড অপ को केतले शिफ्ट करिवो ना व्हेन इनकम टेस्ट प्रेफरेंस जेतले इंक्रीज करिवो अप को शिफ्ट करूची तले इनकम टेस्ट प्रेफरेंस फॉल करिवो तटा डाउन को शिफ्ट करूची so the expansion contractions and this is called the increase decrease. This is called the movement along the demand curve. This is called the shift in demand curve. This is called the change in quantity demanded. Change in quantity demanded, and here is called the change in demand. Change in demand. That a different way the distinction between or short notes to be going to be takes place. Say you करे तमे answer देबो. That means कहा को the change in demand means this part. Change in quantity demand means this part. Shift in demand curve means that part. Movement along the demand curve is this. That is a different way, different versions are there. You are going to be explaining it. Now, next most important question is to be why the demand curve shifted? What are the causes behind it? Why it to be shifted? What are the causes behind the shifting? Causes of shifting. So, demand curve kahinge shift karuchi tar cause gudika kona. Now, first of all the income, second is the taste, third is to be let us say expectation in the future expectation, and fourth one is to be let us say to be substitute or the complement, like the price of related goods, price of related goods. So, these things and the we take into account the next part is the number of consumers, number of buyers. So, এই ଜିନିଷ ଗୁଡ଼ିକ ଆମକୁ ମେଜର କଜ୍ କହୁଛି କାହିଁକି ଆମର ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ କର୍ଭଟା ସିଫ୍ଟ କରୁଛି ନା ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ କର୍ଭ ସିଫ୍ଟ କରୁଛି ଇନକମ୍ ଇନକ୍ରିଜ୍ କଲେ डिमांड कर्व राइट को शिफ्ट कर राइट को शिफ्ट करियो इनकम फॉल कले डिमांड कर्व लेफ्ट को शिफ्ट करिवो टेस्ट इंक्रीज कले डिमांड कर्व राइट को शिफ्ट करियो टेस्ट फॉल कले डिमांड कर्व लेफ्ट को फॉल करिवो सिमिलरली future expectation I mean the future it be uncertain we have to consuming more and more it be right now if the future is certain we have to consume less and less right now so that is the concept to be future expectations similarly number of buyers also be যেটা দেখিবা number of buyers ଅଧିକ ହେଇଯିବେ they have to be consuming more when the number of buyers should be less then the consuming less and the price of related goods যেটা price of related কোন I mean তাকো related means both the price of your substitute as well as the complement because we take it as the price of related goods both the price of substitute and price of complement so price of substitute আমি কাহো কইবা না আমি যেটা কহিবা substitute when the price of a commodity fall the demand for of the other commodity also will fall when price of a commodity rises the demand of the another commodity rises in both if both rise or the both fall then in that case it is called the substitute if the opposite is case in case the complement right this is the all about your demand right now after knowing the term demand again the last the most important part it will going to be left actually that is called the demand side what is called the why the demand is a bit downward sloping. Next question is to be why this demand is a downward sloping, why not the upward sloping, what are the causes behind it? Actually the demand is be downward sloping because when price falls consumers real income increases, purchasing power increases, they try to purchase more and more amount of it. When you try to purchase more and more amount of it therefore the demand is to be downward sloping that is the first cause. Second due to the new consumer initially there is less amount of I mean high price very few consumers are there. When price falls now those who initially consume definitely they have to be consuming more but those people जे आगरो किणी पार नथिले बर्तमान पैसा कमिला परे आसले मार्केट को किणीबा पय therefore number of consumer increases and due to that demand curve downward sloping due to the substitution effect in the sense when the price of a commodity fall that particular commodity is relatively cheaper than another commodity. जदि गोटे प्रोडक्टर पैसा कमी जाउची धर थम्स अप रो पैसा कमी गला डिमांड ऑफ द थम्स अप टू बी इंक्रीजेस कहीं ना न्यू कंज्यूमर आसले नो डाउट बट व्हाट यू फाइंड दैट पर्टिकुलर कमोडिटी इज रिलेटिवली चीपर अन्य जो कोल्ड ड्रिंक्स अच्छी से माने डियरर हो गले से माने कॉस्टलियर हो गले जार पैसा कमी गला now they have to be consumed try to consume more and more amount of it that is called the substitution effect. There is certain commodities which are the multiple utilizations like your coal, like your gas, petrol, like your milk the multiple utilization electricity multiple utilizations. When the price of those type of product fall then the demand of those product increases at a faster rate but when price rise demand also will fall at a faster rate. So that is the most important part what is called the new consumer. And the most common concept why the demand curve is to be downward sloping that is called the law of diminishing marginal utility. But as you people not I mean acquainted with the term law of diminishing marginal utility you have to skipping that part right now. In the coming concept while you explain the terms marginality analysis you have to able to express you have to judge the term what is the why the demand curve to be sloped downward because of the law of marginal utility. So this is all about the first concepts what is called the demand and the demand functions. In the coming class we have to start with the term what is supply, what is the supply functions, individual supply, then there is a change in supply curve also be shift in supply all the things will be coming in the coming class. Thank you for today. Thanks.